What's up, everyone? The NFL is back. We just finished week one of the regular season, and man, did it not let us down. What a great week of football this was. A lot of great storylines to get into. Um, I think there was it's funny with the NFL. There's always something that just makes you go, "What in the world happened?" Uh, I mean, you look and the 49ers are supposed to be one of the best teams in the league. Lose 19-10 to the Bears in what was a slosh fest. You have a supposed battle of the Blue Bloods in Kansas City versus the Cardinals, and it's a complete blowout. The Cowboys are supposed to be this great team this year. A lot of people thinking highly of them. They put up 3 points against the Buccaneers. So just a lot of wild stuff going on, and we just cap it off with the Denver Broncos losing to the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's supposed to be tanking for the number one pick. They lose in week one after they just added Russell Wilson. They have a myriad of receivers, great running backs, good defense, and they lose by 1 point. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about a little bit about what in the world was Nathaniel Hackett thinking with that field goal. What a mind-blowing decision to end the game with a 64-yard try. But first, let's kick it off. I think the first one that I really want to hit, and I think this is one of the biggest storylines, is Patrick freaking Mahomes. This guy's heard all summer how he was completely dependent on Tyreek Hill, that he's nothing without his number one target, how Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow arguably have passed him up as the best quarterbacks in the AFC, that he's not even really the guy anymore. And what does this guy do? He not only does he throw for 360 yards, he throws for 5 touchdowns, doesn't throw a pick, has both of those are the best in the NFL in week one, 5 touchdowns, 360 yards. He doesn't even really play much in the fourth quarter because his team puts up 44 points against a Cardinals team that started off red hot last year and was a team that many were afraid of this year and thought had the potential to win a Super Bowl. And I know it's week one, but 44-21, spreading it to basically everybody. I mean, heck, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was kind of this cast-off, has 2 touchdowns in the game from Mahomes, and Mahomes just picked them apart. Spread it to everybody. Juju Smith-Schuster was involved. Kelsey was dominant as always. And look, I think my takeaway from this is, guys, let's slow down on the Josh Allen and Justin Herbert love. Patrick Mahomes is still in the NFL and he still plays in the AFC. That guy's the best quarterback in football, and until those other guys can unseat him and on a consistent basis to beat him on a consistent basis, I mean, come on, give me Patrick Mahomes. This guy's unreal. Uh, yes, Patrick Mahomes was helped out a lot by having Tyreek Hill, who was the one player in the NFL that you cannot physically underthrow or overthrow. Mahomes could just fling his arm and he would throw it 70 yards, and somehow Tyreek Hill would still have to wait on the ball because that's how fast that dude is. But give Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelsey, and this guy's going to find a way to put points on the board. 44 points against the Cardinals, just making it look like a cakewalk up and down the field. That guy's special. And if I were to choose one quarterback that I want to start my team with, that I want to have on my team for this season, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. Second one, I think really storyline that really jumps out to me is, goodness gracious, what is wrong with the Cowboys? Now, the Dak injury aside, Dak injury is going to have huge implications for them. He's probably out, what, I think 6 to 8 weeks, something like that, with the potential surgery on his thumb. Cooper Rush is going to be their quarterback for a while, so that's an abject disaster. But even before the injury, there were no wide receivers. The Cowboys are severely lacking at the wide receiver position. Yes, they have CeeDee Lamb, but without Gallup out there, without even maybe a James Washington, losing Amari Cooper for what, a fifth round pick, peanuts, they've severely missed Amari Cooper out there. And also their insistence on giving Zeke the ball, um, when Tony Pollard is, who didn't have a great game, but has been the far more explosive player in recent memory, and just mind-boggling. They put up 3 points on national television, and you're telling me they had Dak Prescott all game, and now they're going to go to Cooper Rush. Yeah, good luck. Jerry Jones, team building has not always been his strong suit. I know he built some great teams back in the day, but we're not in the 90s anymore, folks. I'll be interested to see what they do. I think if I'm the Cowboys, I go right now and I'm calling up the 49ers and asking them for Jimmy Garoppolo. because that's their only chance of salvaging the season. Cooper Rush is not winning you many games in the NFL, and I don't think there's enough supporting talent around him really to prop up this team. Now, the defense maybe could win you a game or two, but Cooper Rush is he even a replacement level starting quarterback? No. I mean, I think he's one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the league, and they're going to be in a lot of trouble with him at the helm. The third one I alluded to this earlier is Russ returns to Seattle. And while the stats look great, throws for 340 yards, has a touchdown or two, they lose 17 to 16. I mean, what in the world happened? So first, I think there's a couple things I want to point out in this game. This was really, I think, a sign of what Russ wanted. They even though Denver has two of the best running backs in the league, in Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, or maybe at least one of the best 1-2 punches in the league, they only ran it 20 times, whereas they threw 42 times on the day. In a game that they were never behind by more than what 7 points, they ran it twice as much as they passed it. And you can say, well, maybe they weren't that effective on the ground. Well, no, that's not true. They ran for over 5 yards per carry. That's incredibly effective. They were popping runs left and right. And for some reason, the Broncos offense was just, hey, Russ, I don't know, save us. But like the whole game. And I think this is what Russ wanted. This is why he wanted out of Seattle, because he wanted to control the offense. But if you're going to do that, you can't put up 16 points against the Seahawks, who are supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league. And look, I know it's growing pains, and it's going to be an evolution here. But I think that another thing that kind of really stands out to me is there was a lot of rust around the league, and I think that's what you saw with the Broncos. I mean, this team doesn't have a lot of chemistry. They haven't really played many games together. Russ is this is his first game as a starting quarterback. He didn't really play much in preseason. I think that's kind of a common theme. We saw the Rams, who never play anybody in the preseason, they only put up 10 points on opening night against the Bills. And so I think we really saw a lot of rust in this first season. These teams that don't play their players in week one or in preseason, jumping into week one, and all of a sudden your guys just don't have it all together, and they're not ready to play a full 60 minutes, and they come out flat. And we have these like mind-boggling games where the Packers put up 7 points, the Cowboys put up three, the the Cardinals get blown out by 23 points to the Chiefs. It's interesting. I think we'll see that rust kind of wear off in the next couple weeks. But for the Broncos, with that level of talent that they have, three really good receivers and Sutton, Judy, and then you throw in like a Hamler or some of their other tight end targets out there. Also, two really good running backs in Gordon and Javonte Williams, and they put up 16 points on the road. And that's don't even let me get me started on what in the world were they doing in that 4th and 5 late in the game? I mean, you have three timeouts with a minute left. Kicking a 64-yard field goal, is that really the right move there? I mean, goodness gracious, that's that would have tied the record for the second longest kick in NFL history. Does that make any sense there? You have Russell Wilson, you just paid this guy $250 million, and you're afraid to try and get 5 yards with him? I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, that's an ultimate sign of not trusting your quarterback. But if you're paying your quarterback all this money, why do you not trust him in that situation to get 5 yards? And then they run down the clock to 20 seconds. They take the timeout. So now that they only have two timeouts left, and even if they miss, they have no chance of getting the ball back. It's just going to be three knees for the Seahawks. If you're going to kick the field goal, get the field goal unit out there as soon as possible. Kick the field goal, and don't waste the timeouts. You still have the three timeouts. So I just a mind-bogglingly dumb decision by Nathaniel Hackett there. If you're going to kick the field goal, you need to at least give yourself a chance to get the ball back, which they did not do. Great win by the Seahawks. It clearly meant a lot to them, and hats off to Geno Smith for sticking around, man. That guy, I was not a huge fan of. I didn't really like him necessarily with the Jets, but for him to stick around and after 8 years ago, he last started a game on opening season or the opening game of the season, and he starts a game this year for the Seahawks. For him to be a starting quarterback again after milling around as a backup quarterback, hats off to him. That's impressive. Look, the Seahawks maybe aren't going to be the greatest team, but that's a lot of determination to stick around in the league for that long. Um, and another kind of theme that kind of stood out is this the zero wide receivers or not having any top wide receivers just really not a great move. And I think that is the theme that really stood out with the Packers. You can go down to the Patriots as well, but the Packers, Alan Lazard, the number one wideouts out. They get rid of Devonta Adams for a ton of picks, and they put up 7 points against the division rival Minnesota Vikings. Look, Aaron Rodgers is great. He won the MVP last year, but if you don't give that guy some weapons to work with, I mean, what are you doing? They had no wide receiver than more than 30 yards. Sammy Watkins, who I think was on the field the most for that team, had 18 yards receiving. And I know Aaron Rodgers is incredible. He's a great player, but at some point you have to give your quarterback some talent to play with. And I don't know where the Packers go. Maybe Lazard answers some of those questions and kind of surprises us a bit. But goodness, is that not a bad sign? The Packers are going to have to find a way to manufacture points. I think they used their backs well in week one, but they need to continue to use both Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon in the pass game and the running game and be a little bit more methodical moving the ball down the field than they have in the past. They're not going to have that big play ability with these wide receivers that they had in the past. It might be more dump offs to the Dillon and Jones and letting those guys go to work because there is no dominant number one receiver on this team. They're gonna have to, rely on those two backs and the wisdom and the savant nature of Aaron Rodgers to try and manufacture points for this team. And in the kind of the last one I want to talk about, I know this is going back to Thursday, but the Rams versus Bills. As I alluded to earlier, the Rams basically resting all their plays in preseason. They come out super flat. They don't look ready for the game. The only player that really seems ready for the game is Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp's always ready to play. And look, I don't want to overreact too much, but the Bills looked like absolute world beaters in that game. I mean, they dominated that game start to finish. But I think it reminds me a lot of the Bills of last year. And the Bills last year, for every big game, they came out and they played their butts off. But then they would play these middling teams and they would, not really show up and they wouldn't be amped up for it. So I think the big question with the Bills is consistency. So now you hammer the Rams on opening night in LA. How do you follow that up? What are you going to do this week? Are you going to have a letdown after a big win, or can you turn the page and be more consistent and play on a week to week basis? And I think that's a big thing for them. The Bills have this incredible high, but they also have really low lows. And it's important for them to make sure they maintain that level. And with Josh Allen trying to take that next step and be the quote unquote best quarterback in football, that's something that's actually really paramount as a quarterback, because you need to have your team ready to play on a week in and week out basis. And yeah, so that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the week one of the NFL. I thought it was a lot of fun. Um, what a crazy week it was, but it's so glad to have football back. Thanks, everyone.